The Silk Road is an ancient network of routes that connected cities across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. It helped shape civilizations and facilitated the travel of goods, ideas, and even religions. For over 2,000 years, it was the lifeblood of commerce and culture, forever changing the course of human history. Keep watching to learn more about the fascinating history of the Silk Road. Origins and geography. The story of the Silk Road begins over 2,000 years ago in approximately 130 BCE during the reign of the Han Dynasty in China. Although trade between the East and the West predated this period, it was during the Han Dynasty that the Silk Road began to take on a more formalized structure. The Silk Road was not a single paved highway. Instead, it was a vast, complex network of trade routes that linked China to Central Asia, the Middle East, and even as far as the Mediterranean. The term Silk Road was coined hundreds of years later, in the 19th century, by the German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen. He named it after the luxurious Chinese silk traded along the route. Despite the name, the Silk Road was more than just a silk trade route. It was an exchange system for various goods, spices, gold, ivory, art, and even religion. The Silk Road was the foundation of cultural diffusion across continents. Imagine the vast expanse of the Silk Road, starting in Xi'an, the capital of ancient China, then winding its way through the Gobi Desert, the Taklamakan Desert, and the treacherous mountain passes of the Pamir Range before eventually reaching the valleys of Persia, the bustling bazaars of Baghdad, and the cities of the Roman Empire. It even reached Rome itself. The Silk Road covered approximately 4,000 miles, and a caravan could take months or years to complete the journey. In addition to the vast variation in the geography it covered, the Silk Road connected wildly different cultures, empires, and economies. From the Chinese dynasties to the mighty Persian Empire, to the nomadic tribes of Central Asia, to the Greeks and later the Romans, each played a part in maintaining and protecting sections of the road. It wasn't just one empire's creation. The Silk Road evolved through the collective efforts of many civilizations over the centuries. The creation of the Silk Road. Although the Han Dynasty is credited with establishing the Silk Road's eastern terminus, the network's creation was a long and gradual process. Trade routes existed in Central Asia long before the Silk Road was formalized. Nomadic tribes, particularly the Scythians, traversed these regions and traded with settled civilizations like the Persians and the Greeks. However, it was the Han Dynasty that first linked these disparate networks into a cohesive network, aiming to open trade between China and the West. One crucial leader in this process was Zhang Qian. He was a Chinese diplomat whom Emperor Wu of Han sent to explore the regions to the west and form alliances amongst the nomadic Xiongnu people, who were constantly threatening China's northern borders. Though Zhang Qian's mission was not entirely successful in its political aims, he returned with valuable knowledge of the western lands and their potential for trade. His reports of places like Bactria, in what is now Afghanistan, and Parthia, in ancient Iran, laid the foundation for what would become the Silk Road. Demand for the luxurious fabric skyrocketed as the Chinese began exporting their prized silk to the West. In Rome, silk became a status symbol among the elite, who paid exorbitant prices. According to Pliny the Elder, the Roman Empire spent vast amounts of gold on silk. He lamented that the Romans enriched foreign lands by purchasing such frivolous goods. But it wasn't just silk that flowed from east to west. In return, the Chinese imported horses, glassware, woolen textiles, and other goods from the West. The creation of the Silk Road was not only about trade, but also about diplomacy. Along the route, various empires and kingdoms formed alliances to ensure the safe passage of goods. For instance, under the Parthians and later the Sassanids, the Persian Empire was crucial in maintaining the middle portion of the Silk Road. They established diplomatic ties with the Chinese and the Romans to facilitate the smooth flow of commerce. Trade created the Silk Road. Trade routes like the Silk Road didn't just spring up overnight. They evolved over centuries in response to the growing demands of empires and kingdoms for luxury goods and rare materials. Silk was one of the primary goods that sparked the initial interest in the route. China had mastered the art of silk production, and the fabric was highly sought after in the West, particularly in the Roman Empire. The Romans, in turn, provided the Chinese with glassware and metalwork that were equally prized in the East. Spices were another crucial element of the Silk Road trade. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and other exotic spices made their way from the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia through the Silk Road into the Middle East and Europe. These spices were used to flavor food, preserve meats, and for medicinal purposes. Precious stones like jade, lapis lazuli, and rubies were also exchanged along the route. Jade was an especially valued material in China. Central Asia, particularly modern-day Afghanistan, was rich in precious stones, which they traded for Chinese silk and other goods. The Silk Road also saw the exchange of medicinal plants, herbs, and minerals. which were highly sought after in both the East and the West. Knowledge of herbal medicine was passed along the route, contributing to the development of traditional medicines in China, India, Persia, and beyond. The Silk Road wasn't just about material goods, though. It was a highway for the exchange of ideas, religions, and technologies. Along with silk and spices, the road carried Buddhist monks from India to China, spreading their teachings across Central and East Asia. Christianity also spread from the Mediterranean to Persia. How did traders travel the Silk Road? The logistical challenge of transporting goods across such vast distances was immense. Merchants had to navigate treacherous landscapes, hostile territories, and fluctuating climates. Bactrian camels were the primary mode of transport for much of this journey. These hardy animals were able to withstand the harsh conditions of the Gobi and Taklamakan deserts, along with the freezing temperatures of the Pamir and Tian Shan mountain ranges. Trade along the Silk Route wasn't a continuous process, with goods moving from one end of the road to the other in a single journey. Instead, it was done in stages, with goods passing from one person to another. It was similar to a relay race. A merchant in Xi'an might sell silk to a Central Asian trader, who would then sell it to a Persian merchant. That Persian merchant would, in turn, pass it on to Roman traders. This system allowed goods to move vast distances, but it also meant that the original producers often had little idea where their goods ultimately ended up. Along the route, caravanserais provided rest stops for weary merchants and their animals. These inns were scattered across the deserts and mountain ranges, offering food, shelter, and protection from bandits. Caravanserais became hubs of cultural exchange, where traders from different regions would meet, trade stories, and exchange goods and information. Each empire along the Silk Road played a vital role in maintaining the route. For example, the Chinese Han Dynasty secured the eastern portion, and the Sogdian people of Central Asia controlled the middle section. The Sogdians were renowned traders, known for their linguistic abilities and diplomatic skills, which helped them navigate the many different cultures and empires along the road. Fascinating stories along the Silk Road. The Silk Road wasn't just a trade route, but a stage for some of history's most fascinating stories. For example, one of the most famous travelers along the Silk Road was the Venetian merchant Marco Polo. His journey to the court of the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan became the basis for his renowned travelogue, The Travels of Marco Polo. Polo's journey began in 1271, taking him across the Middle East, Persia, and Central Asia before he reached China. His detailed descriptions of the wealth and sophistication of Kublai Khan's court amazed European readers and helped fuel European interest in Asian trade. Another fascinating story involves the spread of Buddhism along the Silk Road. Buddhist monks traveled from India to Central Asia and China, spreading their religion and establishing monasteries along the way. The oasis city of Dunhuang, located on the edge of the Gobi Desert, became a major center for Buddhist learning and art. Its Mogao caves are filled with beautiful Buddhist murals and sculptures. In addition to spreading ideas and intermingling cultures, the Silk Road played a darker role in spreading disease. The Black Death, one of the most devastating pandemics in human history, is believed to have traveled along the Silk Road in the 14th century, spreading from Asia to Europe. This disease was likely spread via infected fleas on rats that traveled in merchant caravans. The plague killed an estimated 25 million people in Europe, about one-third of the continent's population. The consequences of this disease was horrific, and while the Silk Road was not the only means by which it spread, its role in the pandemic is still one of the darkest pieces of its history. Luckily, the impact of the Silk Road has been largely positive. Cities along the Silk Road also flourished and became centers of wealth and culture. Samarkand, located in modern-day Uzbekistan, is one of the most important cities along the Silk Road. Under the rule of Tamerlane, Samarkand became a hub of art, science, and trade, attracting scholars, artists, and merchants from across the Islamic world and beyond. What does the Silk Road look like today? Though the Silk Road's role as a functioning trade route largely disappeared after the 15th century, its legacy remains. Many countries along the ancient route celebrate the Silk Road as part of their cultural heritage. Several cities, particularly in Central Asia, have preserved remnants of the old trading posts, caravanserai, and temples. Today, you can visit ancient Silk Road cities like Xi'an, home of the famous Terracotta Army. You can also visit Bukhara and Samarkand in Uzbekistan, where the impressive architecture of old trading posts still stand. The Mogao Caves in Dunhuang, China, are another iconic remnant of the spiritual life of the Silk Road. They still house stunning Buddhist murals and sculptures. In modern times, China has launched the Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project that aims to revive and expand global trade routes, drawing inspiration from the ancient Silk Road. The initiative seeks to build roads, railways, ports, and other infrastructure to facilitate trade between Asia, Europe, and Africa. While it is a modern geopolitical project, It evokes the spirit of the ancient Silk Road. In the end, the Silk Road was so much more than a trade route. It was a lifeline of civilizations, a meaning for connecting empires, and a way to spread ideas, religions, cultures, and goods across thousands of miles. Its legacy endures in the form of modern trade routes, cultural exchanges, and the shared history of the many peoples who traveled its paths. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.